censored apps of all the social media platforms. But there was significant money that was being put in. I have entire videos digging into.
I actually want to say something about this, so I might as well just say it and record it and upload it, whatever happens to it. So they're talking about TikTok being harmful. To be honest, I don't have TikTok and I don't really use it. And if anyone puts in TikTok links, they don't open without the app. Unlike Instagram, I think you can watch them without the app installed. So what? This is just an observation that it's worth noting. It's a bit of an insight. So I've noticed that with TikTok, I'm not saying that it's solely TikTok are responsible and it's only TikTok. But for example, I've noticed, not that I do watch TikTok, but you get these videos and everyone's like doing this fashionable trend of doing these dancing videos, right? There's nothing wrong with dancing, right? Don't get me wrong. I love dancing. Dancing is great for everyone. But there's this fashion or trend in... it ends up kind of like being a hobby or... kind of like what they're interested in, doing these like synchronized videos or synchronized dancing and movements where you learn exact specific moves and basically mimic each other, and you're doing it kind of like in synchronicity, you're doing it in time. Now, a lot of artists do this on the stage, but they've been doing it, since pop stars were pop stars, like Madonna and Taylor Swift and all. I mentioned Taylor Swift because they mentioned her in the Extinction Rebellion demonstration the other day, Chris Packham, about private jets. But these stage shows, Tom Cruise advocates this because I think Tom Cruise was at the front of an audience trying to make out that, he was just a minion like everyone else, going to all these big stage shows. Not really rock bands or heavy metal bands. A lot of these, Smashing Pumpkins, Iron Maiden, all these metal and rock bands don't really do that. It's definitely in the pop culture or in another kind of brand. It's got its own branch, but it's become cool or trendy. The thing with it is this, right? At the end of the day, it's just another form of art, another form of expression, another form of dance. But why did it particularly take off? The thing is, anything can take off and become popular. But the thing with it is that, these platforms and platform owners and the corporate elite and, all the people, I've seen in America, you get all these team shirts for baseball teams and other sports teams, and they've all got like the Nike logo on, but then they've got the team on the sweater, so it's all Nike stuff. All these companies and sportswear brands are all owned now or shareholding under these, big companies. So it's kind of like the corporate elite, BlackRock, Vanguard, all the shareholders who buy up all these companies are almost controlling the culture. The thing about it is that, like with the military, you've got the drill, the military drill, they practice marching, like you see Putin's soldiers or you see, King Charles's soldiers, marching around, and they've got all the uniforms neat and prim. Now, that is something that tourists like to see. If American tourists come to England, they like to see all the Beefeaters, all the King's Guard, marching in drill. It's something to watch, when they're all neat and prim. But the concept behind this kind of mass kind of like synchronous movement and units, there's something else to it, Now, I'm not saying that indigenous people around the world didn't do this, but I wanted to note that I think it's important to note that there's some very, very old video footage, it might even be black and white, of very, very old native Indians. It's like some of the earliest video footage, when they very first invented moving pictures after, cameras, of some of the tribes that were still doing, there's probably some of them still doing it now, but this is like extremely, extremely authentic, like the real thing. And what I notice about those indigenous peoples in America, North America, as well as some of the ones in South America, when they dance and when they move, right, this kind of untainted or untapped into, influenced natural dancing, going as back far as we can get record of for humans. There's something very different about that dancing, particularly in North America and South America. When the indigenous people, like, they do these animal movements, like they mimic, the bird, or they mimic the hummingbird, or they mimic the badger or the bear or whatever. And what I notice is in those indigenous groups, each person is doing their own very unique individual movements, but they're not all like copying each other or mimicking each other. They're all like individuals. Yes, they're actually trying to copy or mimic the movement of the animal, right? But to me, it seems very individualist. I know that there are some tribes in Africa that kind of do more of a synchronous dance and song, because obviously singing is, when you've got a whole group of people singing the same song, that is effectively mimicking, because they're copying the notes, they're singing the same tune. But you get different singers who, like, usually enter the vocals with their own part, with their own unique individual part, right? Now, the thing is, when you start seeing, the corporate workforce, when they've all got their McDonald's uniform on and they're all kind of like working as a unit, I think there's something about the government and particularly, the military elite, and probably King Charles, and other royalty around the world, that like the idea of this kind of uniform movement, uniformity, copying each other. But where we see it most now is this whole thing that's going on in China, like with the they've got mass surveillance, they've got social point system, they've got, everyone having basically, in China, they've got it so that every single person is almost like a cog in a machine, and if one cog goes out of time, then they're getting penalised, for these social point systems and so forth. Not that I think the mobile phone already is the digital ID, and they've got social point systems because we've got number of followers, number of likes, they put numbers on us all. So we've got points, now, you're popular by how many followers you've got. So we've got it now, but because it's not introduced by the government, they call it social media. It's effectively exactly the same as what they're doing now, the government, in China, but just actually doing it for fun, social, and everyone likes it, We've all got numbers and points and scores. So I think that the whole idea, when they're calling TikTok out, there are still people doing this on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. It isn't just TikTok, but TikTok seemed to flagship that trend. They seem to make it more popular and cool. And I know that people, copy these music artists and pop artists, dancers and so forth, but never to this extremity. Now, it has carried over to, comedy. You get a couple of mates doing these little comedy sketches where they do a little synchronized funny sketch or movement or something, or skit or whatever. I'm not condemning that at all whatsoever, but I don't think that it's just followed a natural order, like some people are into football, some people are into hockey, some people are into, basketball, some people are into this or that. I think that with those the synchronized movement scene, I think that they've tapped into it, and kind of the TikTok and the platforms definitely have zoned in on it, focused in on it, and changed the algorithms to try and get more teenagers and people interested in it. And the thing is, right, I think that it definitely does advocate and encourage this kind of like synchronized, possibly like Alan Sugar, The Apprentice, work as a team, working as a cog, basically effectively as a cog in a machine, running to perfect synchronicity. It really is something desirable or likable to, McDonald's, to the McDonald's empire, to the McDonald's culture, staff, managers, shareholders, It definitely is something that I think that, BlackRock Vanguard, the Chinese government like, because if you think about it, there are some very, very strange photos actually in China. They do this on grandiose scale, on grandiose mass. Like they have these really weird events, or when they have like the entire office block, maybe it was injected into the music video, like when you get Gangnam Style and things like that. They kind of, but it's become the style. But in culture, in fashion, something only becomes fashionable if someone makes it fashionable, right? Sometimes if we look back at the 80s when things were really fashionable, then we can look back and maybe they don't look as cool now or as fashionable as people saw them back then, I think that there's definitely kind of a military aspect to it, or a government desirability in why TikTok might focus in and draw out on that. But there's something, I guess you could argue against me, right, with this and say, what about the Terracotta Army, Well, what about the Terracotta Army? They've got all the statues of everyone perfectly lined up. But again, that is military though, isn't it? That is historic. There's no doubt about that. That is something historical. But like the Romans, the thing is, whenever you get this mass synchronized movement, the mass synchronized actions, there is a particular set of parameters that come with it, that it associates with. It's not purely entertainment. It's not purely like free, unassociated entertainment, because if you notice, right, when you get this mass movement, it's like, if it's, Madonna or Taylor Swift or someone like that in a stadium, it is mass gatherings of people, like football stadium or O2 Arena or whatever. It always comes with extremely large numbers of people, getting them to all do the same movements or do the same thing or follow the many copying the few, and then everyone doing the same thing or movement and it being cool. Or it comes in with a military theme, something to do with warfare, or, as we find out, governmental, right? Governmental rulership, which when we get this, social point system and so forth. So it always, even though you could say of itself, of its own merits and existence, mimicry is a legitimate art form. You could say that, mimicry is a legitimate art form. But I think that art form tends to manifest or become prevalent when there are regimes or authoritarian or military or mass culture where they want everyone to buy the same thing and make profit out of it. Because remember, a lot of these pop stars, and successful groups who do these dances and mimicry, they tend to be the ones who are making a lot of money out of a lot of people and getting them to buy a lot of merchandise. And a lot of that money doesn't just go to them, it goes to some kind of corporate profit. I'm not saying that some of the big heavy metal bands, like Iron Maiden or whatever, or, don't have corporate elites who make some money out of their merchandise and have mass people. But that's the thing, they don't necessarily have everyone doing the same moves. And the thing is, individual expressionism, everyone being different, the psychological themes behind everyone having their own moves or having their own style is, this freedom of expression, freedom of expression. When you think about it, under the Human Rights Act, everyone has the right to freedom of expression. If everyone started doing the same TikTok dance or move and it become fashionable or stylable and they didn't want to do a different move, they wanted to make sure it was the same, you've actually cleverly and cunningly kind of like got everyone to want to not be free to express themselves. They think it's cool or trendy to do the same moves or to copy the moves or to do the moves that other people are doing, not their own. So you've actually kind of misled or tricked people through the kind of like trend or fashion to think, it's cool not to express yourself freely or express yourself individually, So, that's something that I think is on the cards with TikTok. It's something that is relevant to movements and global agendas that needs to be discussed with TikTok. Again, I'm not writing off the art form of mimicry as, legitimate art form, but it seems to be that if it was a legitimate art form among art forms, right, then it would just be like, some people, statistically, it would, the same amount of people would do it as anyone else, right? But notice when the more and more people who adopt that art form and like it and get into it, it's en masse, So, everyone in the stadium is doing it. Well, you might say that all the people who are not in the stadium, who are, individually expressing themselves, add up to the same. They're not all together. But that's the thing. They haven't come together. They haven't united. You can have these, maybe you might think that I'm kind of going in circles a bit now, but I'm going to bring it to a close soon. Yes, there are big gatherings like raves where everyone is together en masse doing individual and different manoeuvres and movements, but usually, actually, those places are against the regime and, wasn't it the underground raves, that started getting shut down, that the police kept turning up at, Wasn't it when, everyone was taking, ecstasy pills or drugs and coming up with their own individual movements and moves and going there for free, even in a forest or in an old mill or underground, because some corporate elite wasn't making mass money out of it. And it was freedom of expression, but also not corporate profit. Against how they want, and that's a good example of how they want to, get the everyone copying, mimicking, and getting the money rolling. And I'm not saying that whether those raves were or were not breaking the law, if there were laws. But then again, laws are regimented, but laws aren't supposed to be there to get everyone doing the exact same moves. They're meant to be there to just stop undesirable actions that harm people or that are dangerous. But we're finding more and more laws that are preventing that now, like in Scotland and so forth, that are taking away the freedom of expression. Really, the whole idea behind this kind of like copying and mimicry movement is everything against freedom of expression in the Human Rights Act, Although you've got the freedom to join in if you want, But the ultimate model and goal of the corporate elite is to have everyone at work in the workforce, basically, packing the widgets, small, big box, small box, big fish, little fish, cardboard box, or whatever they used to call it, but if you think about the current direction they're going with that notion, what they're actually doing is, with all the machines they're building, the trajectory that it's going in most definitely is that they're going for no workforce, they're going for all machines. I'm not saying that you won't need humans to be highly skilled, and some of them make the machines, but the current, I think everyone can see now that, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, these Jeff Bezos, they've got plans for getting as many machines replacing as many jobs as possible. And what happens to the humans when they don't need this synchronous movement, this kind of copied, mimic, create movement? What happens when all the machines are doing the, exact movement, the exact same mimicry movement? What ends up with the humans then? When everyone doesn't have to go to work and pack widgets in a box, right? When you don't have to act like a machine, when you don't have to stand at a table and move like a machine and pack boxes like a machine or whatever it is, even if it's highly skilled. Obviously, the more highly skilled you are, the more precision movements you need. But you can, they're getting robotic arms and lasers now to do precision etchings and maneuvers that apparently humans, can't do. Repetitive. What happens to the humans? Do we all celebrate that we're liberated from being Jeff Bezos's workforce by going out and doing a synchronous, Taylor Swift dance skit? Do you all want to turn up at, Hyde Park or, Finsbury Park or whatever, and all dance in a synchronous movement, to Katy Perry or whatever? We're all free from the workforce, but now, also move like Katy Perry or whatever it is, almost like as if she's got like on Die Another Day, it has got the robotic controls for Icarus on, it's almost like, put Mark Zuckerberg's new metaverse costume on, with the gloves, and maybe he can move us all, as if we're all a robot army, it's got this. The thing with it is, it's got this very robot army vibe to it. But when you've got one superstar on the stage, or even 7 of them, and they're all doing these moves, and every other person is copying the exact same move in absolute synchronicity, right? It even defies, Elon Musk and Bluetooth, because they're doing it and getting you to do it without having a chip implant in your head. You're just doing it, And that's why I kind of, think of those, tribes in South America where they all had, even though there was some mimicking going on because they were mimicking animals, they were all doing it in their own individual way. I mean, if 2 different people were mimicking, say, like a wolf or a snake or something, at least they would be mimicking the wolf or the snake in a completely, absolutely individual way, with their own. They got the style of the snake, but the actual moves that they did were kind of free flowing and natural. So I just wanted to mention that because I think it's actually quite important, because it has there are aspects of it to the military, there are aspects of it to mass consumerism, there are aspects of it to new government systems, like social point systems and compliance and so forth. But also, there are aspects of it to the workforce, like I said, and yet we seem to be heading to get rid of, they're wanting to remove the workforce, which leaves you free to do what you want, or free, will there be any freedom of expression left? The way that some of the governments, like in Scotland, are going with some of the new laws, is there going to be any freedom of expression left? And I know that you might just say, well, it's just something some people don't do all the time. It's just a laugh, or it's just one thing of many things. But it always seems to be when there's a lot of money involved, right? Whether that's making money out of TikTok videos, and all the money seems to be usually, even though some people like, Mr. Beast or whatever do make money off it, there's always someone who's making more money off it, like the platform owners and so forth. And the fact that what they're actually doing is getting everyone else to copy them and do what they're doing, drink what they drink, eat what they eat, So I kind of wanted to mention that because they started talking about TikTok in this video and all the implications around TikTok and platforms. They're definitely what I've discussed and what I've talked about definitely is a thing. It definitely does exist, and it definitely is what you call the mainstream. It's they're filling arenas up, with people who do these things. And again, you might say, well, if you get everyone together who's not doing that, well, if you look at voting in elections, there's a lot of people there's more people who aren't voting, right? There's more people who aren't voting at the moment than who are, right? So you could say, well, you get everyone together who aren't voting, they're not all copying the rest. But it's when they get at least a percentage of people, like whether it's 10, 20, 30%, all doing that thing, that dance, that move, that motion, where they get their solidarity from in their units and regimes in order to dominate and take control over the masses who might not be synchronously, working in this unit form, So that's how they do what they're doing now. That's how the Labour Party. This is the model for Labour, for the Tories, for the Conservatives. Voting, going to, if going to the polling station and ticking the Tory or Labour box was a dance move, they need to get, 10, 20, 30% of people doing that dance move, and they are effectively ruling, like armies rule, like, the Roman army taking over. So that's something that I wanted to discuss. I think I've talked about it in other videos briefly, but they've been talking about TikTok in this, and I actually haven't watched all of this yet, but there's probably more things to speak about, but I just thought I'd get it. I thought I might as well just say that now I wanted to say it. It ties in that there's a very strong tie-in with what's happening in how countries like China are running themselves, are operating. And I think that that's what the American government are kind of getting at with TikTok. The American government are calling TikTok out and saying, no, it's dangerous, or it's got all these, effects and so forth. But what you'll never hear Biden saying is, TikTok's a flagship for social point system, for obedience, for the removal of freedom of expression. You won't get Biden saying, and actually that's how we're ruling you here. We've got you all dancing to these major artists. We've got you all, voting in the ballot box, for this politician or that politician. We know this is, how we do things, but on overdrive,